You're born into the deep blue, but not where you'd expect. Your mother didn't choose some shallow, protected bay or calm coastal waters. Instead, you arrive in the middle of the open ocean, thousands of miles from the nearest shore. The water around you is impossibly deep, so deep that if you sank, you'd fall for hours before hitting the bottom. But you don't sink, you float. Your first breath happens before you even realize you need it. Your mother pushes you toward the surface, and instinctively you break through. The air hits your blowhole for the first time, and your lungs fill completely. It's not gentle, it's immediate and necessary. You either breathe or you don't make it past the first few minutes of life. There's no practice round. Around you, the pod hovers. They're massive, some of them stretching nearly 20 feet long, their dark bodies cutting through the water with an ease that seems impossible. Your mother is one of them, but right now, she's focused entirely on you. She nudges you with her rostrum, guiding you back to the surface every time you start to drift down. You don't know how to control your buoyancy yet. Swimming is still just random movements that sometimes work and sometimes don't. But here's the thing about being born a false killer whale. You're not actually small. Even as a newborn, you're already 8 feet long and weigh close to 400 pounds. You're not some tiny, helpless creature. You're built like a torpedo from day one, with a sleek, dark body designed for speed and power. Your flippers are already strong, your tail flukes already capable of propelling you forward. The problem is, you don't know how to use any of it yet. Your mother stays close, never more than a few feet away. When you try to dive too deep, she blocks your path. When you surface too fast, she slows you down. She doesn't make sounds to communicate with you, at least not sounds you can hear. Instead, she uses something far more sophisticated. Echolocation clicks bounce off your body constantly, painting a detailed picture of exactly where you are and how you're moving. She knows if you're struggling before you even realize it yourself. The rest of the pod forms a loose circle around you and your mother. They're not just watching, they're actively protecting. False killer whales don't travel alone, and they definitely don't raise young alone. This is a family unit, and every member has a role. Some scan the surrounding water for threats, their echolocation calls cutting through the darkness like sonar beams. Others swim in formation, creating a moving barrier between you and the open ocean. You learn to nurse within the first few hours. Your mother's milk is incredibly rich, almost 40% fat content. It has to be. You're growing fast, burning energy constantly just to maintain your body temperature in water that would kill most mammals in minutes. The milk is warm and thick, and you drink as much as you can hold. It's fuel for the rapid development happening inside your body and brain. Speaking of your brain, it's already impressive. False killer whales have one of the highest brain-to-body ratios of any animal on Earth. Your cerebral cortex is highly dead, packed with neurons that are already forming complex connections. You're not just learning to swim and breathe, you're learning to think. The sounds around you aren't just noise, they're a complex language that you'll spend years mastering. The pod moves constantly, and you move with them. There's no rest stop, no safe harbor where you can recover from being born. Within hours of your first breath, you're traveling at speeds that would exhaust most marine animals. Your mother adjusts her pace to match yours, but she doesn't slow down much. The ocean doesn't wait for newborns to catch up. Your first real challenge comes when the pod decides to hunt. False killer whales are apex predators, and they hunt as a coordinated unit. But you can't hunt yet. You can barely swim in a straight line without your mother's guidance. So you stay behind with one of the other adults. usually an older female who's experienced with young calves. She doesn't just babysit you, she continues your education, while the rest of the pod disappears into the depths, chasing down prey with military precision. You practice the basics. Echolocation starts as random clicks and whistles, but gradually you begin to understand what the returning echoes mean. That shape ahead isn't a rock, it's another whale. That movement below isn't current, it's a school of fish. Your brain processes these echoes faster than conscious thought, building a three-dimensional map of everything around you. When the hunting party returns, they bring food, not for you, you're still nursing, but the smell of fresh blood and the excited calls of the successful hunters create your first understanding of what it means to be a predator. The adults share their catch, tearing off pieces and passing them between pod members. It's social, cooperative, and incredibly efficient. You watch every movement, filing away information you'll need later. Your first month passes in constant motion. The pod travels hundreds of miles, following ocean currents and prey migrations that you don't understand yet. Sometimes, you surface in water so clear you can see the bottom hundreds of feet below. Other times, the water is murky and dark, filled with particles that make echolocation more difficult. You learn to adapt to both conditions, developing the flexibility that will keep you alive in an environment that changes constantly. Sleep is different when you're a marine mammal. You don't curl up in a safe den and shut down for 8 hours. Instead, you rest half your brain at a time, keeping the other half alert and conscious. This allows you to continue breathing, swimming, and staying aware of potential threats. Your mother taught you this without words, simply by example. When she rests, you rest. When she's alert, you pay attention. The pod's social structure becomes clearer as you grow. There's a hierarchy, but it's not based on size or aggression. It's based on experience, intelligence, and social bonds that have been built over decades. Your mother holds a respected position. She's proven herself as a hunter, a protector, and a teacher. The older females make most of the decisions about where to travel and when to hunt. The younger adults follow their lead, contributing their speed and strength to group efforts. You start to understand that false killer whales are different from other marine mammals. You're not solitary hunters like some sharks, and you're not massive filter feeders like blue whales. You're something in between, intelligent, social predators who rely on cooperation and strategy rather than just size or speed. Your pod can take down prey much larger than any individual whale, but only by working together. Your second month brings new challenges. Your nursing needs are starting to decrease, but you're still completely dependent on your mother's milk. However, the pod expects more from you now. When they travel, you're expected to keep up without constant guidance. When they dive, you need to hold your breath longer and swim deeper. Your lungs are developing rapidly, becoming more efficient at extracting oxygen and storing it for extended periods underwater. The first time you dive beyond 50 feet, the pressure change hits you like a wall. Your air-filled spaces compress, and for a moment, panic sets in. But your body knows what to do, even when your mind doesn't. Your heart rate slows, blood flow redirects to essential organs, and your muscles begin using oxygen more efficiently. It's called the mammalian dive response, and it's hardwired into your biology. Within minutes, you're comfortable at depths that would require specialized equipment for humans to survive. Your echolocation abilities improve dramatically during this period. What started as random clicks and squeaks becomes purposeful, directed sound beams that you can focus and control. You learn to adjust the frequency and intensity based on what you're trying to detect. high-frequency clicks for detailed examination of nearby objects, lower frequencies that penetrate further into the water for long-range detection. Your brain processes the returning echoes faster than you can think, creating detailed mental images of everything in your environment. But echolocation isn't just about hunting or navigation. It's also about communication. The pod maintains constant contact through a complex series of calls, clicks, and whistles. Each individual has their own signature whistle, essentially a name that others can recognize from miles away. You're developing your own signature call, a unique acoustic fingerprint that will identify you for the rest of your life. The social bonds within the pod are incredibly strong. False killer whales have been observed sharing food with unrelated pod members, caring for orphaned calves, and even supporting injured individuals at the surface so they can breathe. This isn't just instinct, it's genuine altruism that requires complex social intelligence. You're learning these behaviors by watching and participating, absorbing the cultural knowledge that has been passed down through generations. Your third month marks a major milestone, your first successful echolocation of prey. It's just a small fish, barely worth the effort for an adult whale, but for you, it represents a breakthrough in sensory development. You can now distinguish between different types of objects in the water, identify their size and distance, and even determine whether they're moving toward you or away from you. Your mother shows approval through gentle touches and specific vocalizations that you're beginning to understand. The ocean around you is far from empty. You encounter other marine life constantly: dolphins, other whale species, sharks, sea turtles, and countless fish species. Each encounter is a learning opportunity. Some animals are potential prey, others are competitors, and a few are genuine threats. Your pod teaches you which is which through their reactions and behaviors. When they become alert and defensive, you learn to be cautious. When they ignore certain animals completely, you understand those species pose no threat. Your physical development continues at an astounding pace. You're already 12 feet long and gaining weight rapidly. Your muscles are becoming more defined. You're swimming more efficient. The random, uncontrolled movements of your early weeks have been replaced by purposeful, coordinated swimming that keeps you in perfect formation with the rest of the pod. You're no longer a burden that slows down the group. You're becoming a contributing member. But the most important development is happening inside your head. Your brain is forming neural pathways that will determine your intelligence, your social skills, and your survival instincts for the rest of your life. False killer whales have been observed using tools, solving complex problems, and even showing what appears to be grief when pod members die. These sophisticated behaviors require a level of cognitive development that takes years to achieve, and you're just getting started. The fourth month changes everything. Your mother starts bringing you closer during hunting expeditions, but you're still not allowed to participate directly. Instead, you become an observer of something truly spectacular. False killer whales don't just hunt, they orchestrate attacks with the precision of a military operation. The pod spreads out across several miles of ocean, using echolocation to track schools of tuna or mahi-mahi. When they locate a target, the real show begins. You watch as the adults execute coordinated dives, approaching the prey from multiple angles. Some whale drive the fish toward the surface, while others cut off escape routes. The communication during these hunts is constant, rapid-fire clicks and whistles that coordinate movements with split-second timing. It's like watching a perfectly choreographed dance, except the dancers are 20-foot-long predators moving at 30 miles per hour. When they finally strike, It's explosive. Massive jaws snap shut around fish that seem impossibly small compared to your pod's size. But here's what surprises you. They don't just grab the biggest fish available. They're selective, choosing specific individuals from the school with a precision that suggests they can identify the healthiest, most nutritious prey using echolocation alone. Your developing brain files away every detail of these hunts, building a mental database of techniques you'll need to master. Between hunting expeditions, the pod engages in something that looks like play, but serves a much more serious purpose. Adults chase each other through complex underwater courses, practicing the same maneuvers they use during real hunts. They take turns being predator and prey, testing reaction times and refining their coordination. You're allowed to participate in these sessions now, though your contributions are more enthusiastic than effective. Your first attempt at joining a practice hunt is embarrassing. You charge forward with all the confidence in the world, only to completely misjudge the distance to your target and crash into one of the adults instead. The impact sends you tumbling through the water like a torpedo that's lost its guidance system. The adult barely notices. You're still too small to cause any real disruption, but your pride takes a serious hit. The other young whales seem to find your mistake amusing, if their playful clicks and nudges are any indication. But failure is part of the process. Each mistake teaches you something new about hydrodynamics, timing, or spatial awareness. Your brain is remarkably good at learning from errors, adjusting your motor control with each attempt. By the end of the month, you're able to maintain formation during practice sessions, even if you're not contributing much to the actual coordination efforts. Your echolocation continues to develop in ways that seem almost supernatural. You can now detect the internal structure of objects, not just their external shape. A fish isn't just a fish-shaped echo anymore. You can sense its swim bladder, its internal organs, even whether it's healthy or diseased. This level of detail requires incredibly sophisticated neural processing, and your brain is developing the specialized regions needed to handle this constant stream of acoustic information. The social dynamics within the pod become more complex as you mature. You're no longer just your mother's responsibility. Other adults begin taking active roles in your education. An older female, scarred from decades of hunting and survival, teaches you about ocean currents and how to use them for efficient travel. A younger male shows you advanced diving techniques, demonstrating how to compress your body for maximum speed and minimum energy expenditure. But it's not all cooperation and gentle guidance. The pod has rules, and breaking them has consequences. When you stray too far from the group during a rest period, the response is immediate and unmistakable. Multiple adults surround you, their vocalizations sharp and commanding. They don't hurt you, but they make it clear that your behavior was unacceptable. The message is crystal clear. Individual safety depends on group cohesion, and group cohesion depends on everyone following the rules. Your 5th month brings your first real taste of danger. The pod encounters a group of pilot whales, smaller than false killer whales, but traveling in much larger numbers. What starts as a cautious approach quickly escalates into something more serious. Pilot whales are known to be aggressive toward other cetacean species, and this group seems particularly territorial. The encounter begins with long-distance echolocation exchanges, essentially acoustic posturing between the two groups. Both species are trying to assess the other's size, composition, and intentions without getting too close. Your pod maintains tight formation, with you and the other young whales positioned in the center, protected by a wall of adult bodies. When the pilot whales decide to approach more aggressively, your pod's response is swift and decisive. The adults form a defensive line, their massive bodies creating an imposing barrier. Their vocalizations change from cautious assessment calls to something much more threatening, deep, powerful sounds that carry for miles through the water. You can feel the vibrations in your own body, a reminder of just how powerful your species can be when threatened. The standoff lasts for nearly an hour. Both groups circle each other warily, neither willing to back down completely, but neither eager to escalate to actual violence. You learn that ocean politics are complex, resources are limited, and different species must compete for the same hunting grounds and travel routes. Sometimes that competition can be settled through intimidation and posturing. Other times, it requires more direct action. Eventually, the pilot whales decide the confrontation isn't worth the risk and move on. Your pod waits until they're completely out of range before resuming normal activities. The adults remain tense for hours afterward, their echolocation more frequent and their formation tighter than usual. You've learned an important lesson. The ocean is full of competitors, and survival sometimes depends on being willing and able to fight for your place in it. Your 6th month marks milestone, another major, your first successful hunt. It's not a group effort this time, just you and a small school of mackerel that wandered too close to the pod's resting area. The fish are fast, but they're also predictable. They move in tight formation, turning and diving as a single unit. This actually makes them easier targets for an inexperienced hunter, because you don't have to track individual movements. You position yourself below the school, using techniques you've observed dozens of times. Your echolocation locks onto the densest part of the group, and you begin your approach from below. The key is patience. Rushing the attack will scatter the fish before you can reach them. You rise slowly, matching their swimming speed until you're directly beneath them. The strike has to be perfect. You have one chance before the entire school explodes in different directions. You choose your target, a larger mackerel near the edge of the group, and accelerate upward. Your jaws open wide, and for a moment, everything SSL see the fish clearly goes down. You can, its silver scales catching the filtered sunlight from above. Your teeth close around it with a satisfying crunch. The taste of your first self-caught is unlike prey anything you've experienced. It's warm, fresh, and earned through your own skill rather than provided by your mother. The other young whales gather around, inspecting your catch and offering what sounds like congratulations through excited clicks and whistles. Even some of the adults acknowledge your success with approving vocalizations. But one successful hunt doesn't make you a predator yet. You're still nursing regularly, still dependent on your mother for guidance and protection. The mackerel was a lucky catch, a single fish from a vulnerable school. Real hunting, the kind that keeps the pod fed and healthy, requires years of practice and the development of far more sophisticated techniques. Your mother's behavior toward you begins to change subtly during this period. She's still protective and attentive, but she's also starting to push you toward greater independence. When you look to her for guidance during routine activities, she sometimes deliberately ignores you, forcing you to make decisions on your own. When you make mistakes, she allows you to experience the natural consequences rather than immediately intervening to help. This gradual withdrawal of constant support is necessary for your development, but it's also emotionally challenging. You're starting to understand that growing up means becoming more self-reliant, even within the highly social structure of the pod. The safety net is still there, but it's getting smaller and more selective about when it catches you. Your 7th month brings an unexpected crisis. The pod encounters something that changes everything. A massive oil spill stretching across dozens of miles of ocean. The water ahead looks wrong, as darker than it should be, with an oily sheen that reflects the sunlight in unnatural patterns. The smell hits your sensitive chemoreceptors before you can see the full extent of the contamination. Your pod stops dead in the water. The adults exchange rapid-fire vocalizations, their echolocation calls bouncing off the contaminated surface in ways that create confusing, distorted echoes. This isn't just an obstacle, it's a barrier that could kill you if you swim through it. But going around means adding hundreds of miles to your journey, and the pod is already running low on the energy reserves needed for such a detour. The decision-making process is unlike anything you've witnessed before. Usually, the pod moves with fluid consensus, each member understanding their role without lengthy discussion. Now, different adults advocate for different strategies. Some want to dive deep and swim beneath the contamination. Others argue for the long detour around the edges. A few suggest waiting for ocean currents to disperse the oil, even though that could take weeks. You watch as your mother positions herself near the center of these discussions. Her vocalizations are measured and authoritative, carrying the weight of years of experience. She's not the largest whale in the pod, but when she speaks, others listen. You're beginning to understand that leadership among false killer whales isn't about dominance. It's about wisdom, judgment, and the ability to make decisions that keep everyone alive. The final decision is a compromise that showcases the pod's remarkable intelligence. They'll attempt a partial dive beneath the contamination, but with strict protocols. Adults will test the water quality at different depths using their enhanced chemoreception abilities. If any whale detects dangerous levels of toxins, the entire group will surface immediately and find an alternate route. The dive begins with military precision. Your mother positions you directly beneath her, using her body as a shield between you and the contaminated surface water. The adults form a protective formation around all the young whales, creating multiple layers of defense against the toxic chemicals above. Your lungs compress as you descend, but this time the pressure change is accompanied by a new sensation. The water itself feels different, heavier somehow. At 30 feet below the surface, the first adult signals distress. The oil has penetrated deeper than expected, creating toxic plumes that extend far below the visible surface contamination. Your pod begins an emergency ascent, but they can't surface directly into the oil slick. Instead, they must swim laterally, searching for a clean patch of water where they can safely breathe. Your first exposure to human-caused environmental destruction is terrifying and educational. You can taste the chemicals in the water, feel them irritating your skin and respiratory passages. Your mother's body shields you from the worst of it, but you still experience enough contamination to understand that humans pose a different kind of threat than any natural predator. They don't hunt you directly, but they can poison your entire world without even knowing you exist. The detour around the oil spill takes 3 weeks and costs the pod valuable hunting time. By the time you reach clean water again, everyone is showing signs of stress and malnutrition. The adults have fat reserves to maintain the bin burning their pace necessary for survival, and even the young whales have lost weight. Your first lesson in environmental reality is harsh but necessary. The ocean is no longer the pristine wilderness it once was. Your 8th month coincides with a massive feeding opportunity that helps the pod recover from their ordeal. A convergence of ocean currents has created an upwelling that brings nutrient-rich deep water to the surface, supporting an explosion of marine life. Schools of tuna, mahi-mahi, and other large fish gather in numbers that seem almost impossible. But you're not the only predators who've noticed this abundance. Sharks patrol the edges of the feeding frenzy, picking off wounded or exhausted fish. Commercial fishing vessels appear on the horizon, their massive nets and lines creating new hazards that the pod must navigate carefully. Even other whale species arrive to take advantage of the bounty, creating a complex hierarchy of competition and cooperation. Your first experience with large-scale commercial fishing operations is eye-opening. The vessels are enormous, easily dwarfing even the largest members of your pod. Their nets stretch for miles underwater, creating invisible barriers that can trap unwary marine mammals. The sound of their engines disrupts echolocation, making navigation and communication more difficult. One of the adults, an old male with scars from previous encounters with fishing gear, takes on the role of teaching you about these new dangers. He shows you how to identify the acoustic signatures of different types of vessels, how to detect the presence of nets and lines in the water, and most importantly, how to avoid areas where commercial fishing is actively taking place. The lesson becomes practical when a seiner net begins closing around part of the fish school your pod has been hunting. The massive net creates up a wall of synthetic material that's invisible to echolocation until you're dangerously close. Your pod must abandon their hunt and retreat quickly, but one of the younger adults doesn't react fast enough. You watch in horror as she becomes entangled in the outer edge of the net, her powerful struggles only making the situation worse. The pod's response is immediate and coordinated. Adults surround the trapped whale, using their teeth to carefully cut through the synthetic fibers. It's dangerous work. One wrong move could entangle the rescuers as well. But false killer whales don't abandon their pod members, even when helping them creates additional risk. The rescue takes over an hour of delicate work. The trapped whale suffers cuts and abrasions from the net, and the stress of the situation leaves her exhausted and disoriented, but she's alive, and the pod closes ranks around her as they move away from the fishing operation. You've witnessed something that will shape your understanding of both human technology and whale cooperation. Sometimes survival requires taking risks to help others. Your 9th month brings your most challenging test yet. The pod encounters a superpod, a temporary aggregation of multiple false killer whale groups that can number in the hundreds. These massive gatherings happen when food resources are abundant enough to support large numbers of whales in a single area, but they also create complex social dynamics that young whales must learn to navigate. Your small pod of 20 individuals is suddenly surrounded by hundreds of whales, each group with its own hierarchy, hunting strategies, and social customs. The noise level is overwhelming. Echolocation calls, social vocalizations, and hunting communications create a constant acoustic backdrop that makes individual communication nearly impossible. You stay close to your mother, overwhelmed by the sheer scale of the gathering. But superpods aren't just social gatherings. They're opportunities for coordinated hunting on a scale that single pods could never achieve. You watch in amazement as hundreds of whales organize themselves into hunting formations that span miles of ocean. The coordination required for such massive operations goes beyond anything you've observed before, requiring acoustic communication networks that function like biological sonar arrays. The hunt that follows is spectacular and terrifying. Waves of whales drive enormous schools of fish toward the surface, while others cut off escape routes and prevent the prey from diving to safety. The water around you churns with activity as hundreds of predators work in perfect synchronization. Their movement signals that travel faster than the whales themselves can, coordinated by acoustic swim. Your first superpod hunt is too complex for you to participate in directly, but you're expected to observe and learn. The techniques being demonstrated here represent the pinnacle of false killer whale hunting strategy, cooperative behaviors that have been refined over thousands of generations. Every movement, every call, every strategic position has been tested by evolution and proven effective. The social interactions during the superpod gathering are equally educational. You meet young whales from other pods, comparing hunting techniques and playing games that test speed, agility, and intelligence. These interactions help you understand that your pod's methods aren't the only way to survive in the ocean. Different groups have developed different strategies based on their experiences and the environments they inhabit. But superpods also create opportunities for conflict. Resources that seemed abundant for a single pod become scarce when hundreds of whales are competing for the same prey. Tensions rise as different groups jostle for position during hunts, and occasional fights break out between individuals from different pods. You learn that even among highly social species, cooperation has limits when survival is at stake. Your pod's position within the superpod hierarchy becomes clear through a series of subtle interactions and confrontations. Your mother's experience and the pod's reputation for successful hunting earn them respect from other groups, but they must constantly prove themselves worthy of premium hunting positions. Status in false killer whale society is earned through competence, not inherited through birth. The superpod gathering lasts for 2 weeks before prey depletion and social tensions cause the various groups to disperse. As your pod separates from the larger aggregation, you feel a mixture of relief and loss. The constant stimulation and learning opportunities were incredible, but the stress of competing with so many other whales was exhausting. You're glad to return to the familiar dynamics of your smaller group. Your 10th month marks another major developmental milestone, your first deep dive beyond the continental shelf. The pod has been traveling toward deeper waters for days, following prey migrations that lead far from any land. When you finally reach the edge of the continental shelf, the ocean floor drops away into an abyss that seems to have no bottom. The water here is different from anything you've experienced before. It's colder, denser, and filled with strange sounds that echo up from the depths below. Your echolocation calls travel much farther in this deep water, but they also reveal creatures and formations that exist in a world of perpetual darkness. This is the realm of the deep ocean, where the largest and most mysterious predators make their homes. Your first encounter with deep sea life happens during a routine dive. At 800 feet below the surface, your echolocation detects something massive moving in the darkness below, something far larger than any whale in your pod. Your mother immediately signals for an ascent, but not before you get a clear acoustic image of what's down there. It's a sperm whale, and it's hunting something even deeper. The encounter with the sperm whale teaches you about the ocean's vertical hierarchy. Different species occupy different depth zones, and each has evolved specific adaptations for survival at their preferred depths. Sperm whales dive deeper than false killer whales, hunting giant squid in the abyssal depths, but they're also slower and less maneuverable in the upper layers of the ocean. Your shallow water, giving your pod advantages, deep water education continues as the pod encounters other specialized deep-sea species. Beaked whales appear briefly at the surface before disappearing into dives that last for hours. Schools of lanternfish create living galaxies of bioluminescence as they migrate vertically through the water column. Even the water itself seems alive, filled with microscopic organisms that create their own light when disturbed. But the deep ocean also holds dangers that don't exist in coastal waters. Military sonar testing in these remote areas can disorient whales, causing them to surface too quickly and suffer decompression injuries. Deep-sea mining operations disturb the seafloor, sending clouds of sediment and toxic metals into the water column. Underwater cables and pipelines create navigation hazards that can entangle unwary marine mammals. Your pod teaches you to recognize these human-made hazards through their acoustic signatures and environmental effects. Military sonar has a distinctive frequency pattern that causes physical pain in whale ears. Mining operations create characteristic sediment plumes that reduce visibility and contaminate the water. Each threat requires different avoidance strategies, and learning to identify them quickly can mean the difference between life and death. Your 11th month brings your most significant social challenge yet. A young male from your pod, roughly your age but larger and more aggressive, begins challenging your position within the group's hierarchy. These challenges start small, swimming in front of you during travel, positioning himself closer to adults during feeding, and generally asserting dominance through body language and positioning. At first, you try to avoid direct confrontation. False killer whales are generally peaceful within their pods, and serious fights are rare, but avoidance only encourages more aggressive behavior from your challenger. He begins actively blocking your access to shared resources and interfering with your hunting practice sessions. The adults notice but don't intervene. Apparently, this is something you need to resolve yourself. The confrontation finally comes to a head during a practice hunt. Your challenger deliberately ruins your approach to a school of fish, causing them to scatter before you can attempt a strike. It's a clear provocation that can't be ignored without losing all status within the pod. You turn to face him directly, your body language shifting from avoidance to challenge acceptance. The fight that follows isn't violent by human standards, but it's intense and decisive. You and your challenger circle each other, using body positioning and acoustic displays to establish dominance. When physical contact finally occurs, it's more like wrestling than combat, each of you trying to pin the other or force them to submit without causing serious injury. Your smaller size actually works in your favor. You're more maneuverable than your larger opponent, able to dodge his attempts to pin you while landing your own strikes on target. The confrontation lasts only a few minutes before he acknowledges defeat by breaking off and swimming away. You've established your position within the pod's social hierarchy through direct competition. The adult's reaction to your victory is subtle but unmistakable. Your mother offers approving vocalizations, while other pod members acknowledge your new status through changes in their behavior toward you. You're no longer treated as a juvenile who needs constant protection. You're recognized as a developing adult who can defend his position when necessary. But victory in social confrontations brings new responsibilities. Other young whales now look to you for leadership during practice sessions and play activities. Adults begin including you in more advanced training exercises, expecting higher levels of performance and responsibility. Your success has elevated your status, but it's also increased the expectations placed on you. Your 12th month represents a full year of life, growth, and learning. You're no longer the helpless newborn who struggled to maintain buoyancy at the surface. You've grown to nearly 15 feet in length and developed the physical capabilities and mental skills needed for independent survival. But in false killer whale society, 1 year old still means you're barely past infancy. The pod's treatment of you reflects this reality. While you're granted more autonomy and respect than before, you're still excluded from the most dangerous hunting expeditions and critical decision-making processes. Adults continue to monitor your behavior and intervene when you make mistakes that could endanger yourself or others. You occupy a middle ground between juvenile dependency and adult independence. Your hunting skills have developed to the point where you can successfully catch smaller prey on your own, but you still lack the experience and technique needed to contribute meaningfully to major pod hunts. Your echolocation abilities are sophisticated enough for basic navigation and prey detection, but you haven't developed the specialized techniques used by master hunters. Your social intelligence allows you to navigate pod dynamics successfully, but you don't yet understand the subtle communications used in complex cooperative behaviors. In many ways, your first year of life has been preparation for the real challenges that lie ahead. You've learned the basic skills needed for survival, but mastering those skills will take years of practice and experience. You've established your place within the pod's social structure, but maintaining and improving that position will require ongoing effort and adaptation. The ocean around you continues to change as human activities expand and intensify. Climate change is altering ocean temperatures and current patterns, affecting the distribution and behavior of prey species. Plastic pollution creates new hazards that didn't exist when previous generations of whales were learning to survive. Shipping traffic increases noise pollution and collision risks in areas that were once safe havens. Your generation of false killer whales faces challenges that no previous generation has encountered. The traditional knowledge passed down through pod culture may not be sufficient to deal with rapidly changing environmental conditions. You and your peers will need to develop new survival strategies while maintaining the cooperative social structures that make your species successful. But you're also part of a species that has demonstrated remarkable adaptability throughout its evolutionary history. False killer whales have survived ice ages, volcanic eruptions, and countless other environmental changes by combining individual intelligence with collective problem-solving abilities. Your pod represents thousands of years of accumulated survival wisdom, and that knowledge provides a foundation for adapting to new challenges. As your first year of life draws to a close, you're beginning to understand that survival in the modern ocean requires more than just hunting skills and social intelligence. It requires the ability to adapt quickly to changing conditions, to learn from new experiences, and to contribute to the collective knowledge that keeps your pod alive. You're no longer just learning to be a false killer whale. You're learning to be a false killer whale in a world that's changing faster than ever before. Your 13th month introduces you to something that will define the rest of your existence: territory disputes. The pod has been following the same migration route for weeks when suddenly the water ahead fills with unfamiliar calls. Another pod of false killer whales has claimed the hunting grounds your family has used for generations. This isn't a chance encounter. It's a direct challenge to your pod's ancestral rights. The tension builds slowly. Your pod maintains formation but reduces speed, allowing time for acoustic negotiations. The lead adults exchange complex vocalizations with their counterparts, the others resolve through increasingly each side testing aggressive sound patterns. You stay positioned in the center of the formation, but you can feel the electricity in the water around you. Every adult is coiled for action. Your mother's behavior shifts dramatically during these negotiations. The gentle, protective whale who guided you through your first year transforms into something harder, more dangerous. Her echolocation calls become sharper, More focused, her swimming pattern changes from fluid grace to controlled aggression. You're witnessing a side of false killer whale society that young whales rarely see: the willingness to fight for survival resources. The standoff lasts for hours. Neither pod is willing to back down completely, but neither wants to escalate to actual violence unless absolutely necessary. False killer whales are smart enough to understand that fighting causes injuries, and injuries in the open ocean often lead to death. But they're also smart enough to know that backing down from a challenge invites future aggression from other pods. Finally, the opposing pod makes a tactical error. One of their younger adults swims too close to your group's formation, either through inexperience or overconfidence. Your pod's response is immediate and overwhelming. 3 adults converge on the intruder, using their superior positioning to force him back toward his own group. It's not quite violence, but it's a clear demonstration of what violence would look like. The message is received. The opposing pod begins a slow withdrawal, maintaining their dignity, but acknowledging your pod's superior claim to the hunting grounds. Your family has won this round, but you understand that such victories are temporary. Ocean resources are finite, and competition for them will only increase as whale populations recover and human activities reduce available habitat. Your first territorial victory teaches you that false killer whale society operates on multiple levels simultaneously. Within the pod, cooperation and mutual support are absolute. But between pods, competition can be fierce and unforgiving. The same intelligence that makes your species capable of complex cooperation also makes them formidable adversaries when resources are at stake. The hunting that follows your territorial victory is some of the best you've ever witnessed. The adults are energized by their success, and their confidence translates into hunting efficiency that seems almost supernatural. They coordinate attacks on large tuna schools with precision that leaves no escape routes, no opportunities for prey to outmaneuver their predators. You participate more actively than ever before, finally contributing meaningfully to the pod's food acquisition efforts, but your growing independence brings new dangers. During one hunt, you become separated from the main group while chasing a particularly fast yellowfin tuna. By the time you realize you're alone, the rest of the pod has moved beyond the range of your echolocation calls. For the first time in your life, you experience true isolation in the vast emptiness of the open ocean. Panic sets in immediately. Every survival instinct screams at you to find your family, but the ocean offers no landmarks, no reference points that could guide you back to them. Your echolocation calls echo back from nothing but empty water in every direction. The silence between your calls becomes oppressive, filled with the absence of familiar voices that have surrounded you since birth. You begin swimming in expanding circles, hoping to intersect your pod's travel path. But false killer whales move fast, and every minute of separation increases the search area exponentially. Your calls become more desperate, shifting from the controlled echolocation of hunting to the frantic distress signals of a lost juvenile. Still, nothing responds except your own echoes. Hours pass. Your energy reserves begin to deplete as panic drives you to swim faster and call more frequently than you should. Dehydration becomes mammals get a concern, marine their water from their food, and you haven't eaten since becoming separated. Worse, predators that wouldn't dare approach a full pod might be willing to investigate a solitary young whale. Just as despair begins to overwhelm your rational thinking, a familiar sound cuts through the water. It's your signature whistle being called back to you by your mother from somewhere beyond the range of your vision. Relief floods through your body as you home in on the sound, swimming harder than you ever have before. The reunion with your pod is emotional and intense, with multiple adults converging on you to confirm your safety through echolocation and physical contact. Your mother's reaction to your safe return is complex. She's clearly relieved that you're unharmed, but she's also angry that your inexperience and overconfidence put you in danger. Her disciplinary response is swift and unmistakable. She positions herself between you and any hunting opportunities for the next several days, effectively grounding you from participating in activities that might lead to another separation. The forced inactivity gives you time to reflect on what happened and why. Your eagerness to prove yourself as a hunter overrode your judgment about staying with the group. Independence is necessary for development, but it must be balanced with the safety that comes from pod membership. Learning that balance will be crucial for your survival as you continue to mature. Your 14th month marks the beginning of your formal education in advanced hunting techniques. The adults have decided you're ready. Todd skills that separate. Learn the specialized successful hunters from merely adequate ones. These lessons go far beyond the basic prey capture you've already mastered. They involve understanding prey behavior, ocean conditions, and the complex physics of underwater pursuit. Your first advanced lesson focuses on reading water conditions to predict prey movement. Experienced hunters don't just chase fish, they anticipate where fish will be based on current patterns, temperature gradients, and food availability. You learn to detect the subtle acoustic signatures of different water masses, identifying the boundaries where different ocean layers meet and prey species congregate. The physics of underwater pursuit become a crucial part of your education. Chasing prey in three-dimensional space requires understanding how water resistance affects both predator and prey movements. You learn to use ocean currents to increase your speed while forcing prey to fight against those same currents. You discover how to position yourself so that your prey's escape attempts actually bring them closer to your jaws. But the most important lesson involves patience and energy conservation. Young hunters tend to rely on speed and enthusiasm, burning through their energy reserves in spectacular but inefficient attacks. Experienced hunters know how to stalk their prey methodically, using minimal energy to achieve maximum results. They can maintain pursuit for hours if necessary, gradually wearing down their targets rather than trying to overpower them immediately. Your first successful application of these advanced techniques comes during a hunt for dolphinfish. These fast, agile prey require more sophisticated strategies than the relatively slow fish you've been catching. You spend nearly an hour positioning yourself downwind of a small school, using ocean currents to mask your approach while gradually reducing the distance between yourself and your targets. When you finally strike, the attack is precisely calculated. Instead of charging directly at the nearest fish, you aim for a point where their evasive maneuvers will bring them within range of your jaws. The technique works perfectly. Your target swims directly into your waiting mouth while trying to escape what it perceives as your primary attack vector. It's a level of strategic thinking that marks your transition from instinctive hunting to intelligent predation. Your success with advanced hunting techniques earns you new respect from the adult members of your pod. They begin including you in planning discussions for major hunts, seeking your input on prey behavior and tactical approaches. Your observations are often naive, but occasionally you notice details that more experienced hunters have overlooked. Fresh perspectives can be valuable, even when they come from inexperienced sources. The social dynamics within your pod continue to evolve as you mature. Other young whales, look to you for leadership during practice sessions, recognizing your growing competence and confidence. But you're also beginning to feel the constraints of pod life more acutely. The constant need to coordinate with others, to subordinate your individual desires to group decisions, sometimes chafes against your developing independence. Your 15th month brings your first encounter with human researchers. A small boat approaches your pod slowly, its occupants clearly trying not to disturb your normal activities. Strange devices extend into the water, recording your vocalizations and movements with technology you can't understand. The humans maintain a respectful distance, but their presence changes the pod's behavior in subtle ways. The adults become more cautious, their echolocation more frequent and focused. They position the younger whales toward the center of the formation, creating additional barriers between you and the unfamiliar humans. Some pod members seem curious about the researchers, approaching close enough to investigate their equipment with careful acoustic examination. Others avoid the area entirely, preferring to maintain maximum distance from any human activity. Your own reaction to the researchers is mixed. Their boat creates unfamiliar sounds and vibrations that trigger your caution reflexes, but their behavior doesn't seem threatening. They make no aggressive moves, deploy no nets or lines, and maintain the kind of patient observation that reminds you of your own hunting strategies. After several hours of mutual observation, both species seem to reach an unspoken agreement about coexistence. The research encounter teaches you that not all human activities are destructive or threatening. Some humans appear to study marine life with the same careful attention that you use to study prey behavior. Understanding this distinction becomes important as human presence in the oceans continues to increase. Learning to differentiate between threatening and non-threatening human activities could be crucial for survival in an increasingly crowded ocean. Your 16th month coincides with a dramatic shift in ocean conditions that tests everything you've learned about adaptation and survival. A major current system shifts position, altering water temperatures and prey distributions across thousands of square miles. Fish species that your pod has hunted for generations suddenly become scarce, while unfamiliar species appear in unexpected numbers. The pod's response to these changing conditions showcases the intelligence and flexibility that make false killer whales successful predators. Instead of continuing to search for traditional prey species, they quickly adapt their hunting strategies to target the newly available fish. You watch experienced hunters modify techniques developed over decades, adjusting their approaches to match the behavior patterns of unfamiliar prey. Your own adaptability is tested when the pod encounters a large school of lanternfish near the surface, an unusual occurrence for species that typically remain in deep water. These fish behave differently from anything you've hunted before, using bioluminescence as both communication and camouflage. Traditional hunting approaches fail completely against prey that can literally turn themselves into living lights. The solution comes from observing the fish's behavior patterns rather than relying on standard hunting techniques. Lanternfish use their bioluminescence to coordinate group movements, creating predictable patterns that experienced hunters can exploit. You learn to ignore the distracting light displays and focus on the underlying behavioral patterns that govern the school's movements. It's a masterclass in adaptive learning that prepares you for a lifetime of changing ocean conditions. The success in hunting lanternfish demonstrates your growing maturity as a predator. You're no longer just copying techniques learned from adults. You're developing your own approaches based on observation and experimentation. This kind of innovative thinking is exactly what allows false killer whales to thrive in environments that would challenge less adaptable species. Your 17th month brings your most challenging test yet, your first major storm. The weather system develops rapidly, transforming calm seas into towering waves that dwarf even the largest members of your pod. Wind speeds increase exponentially, creating surface conditions that make normal breathing patterns impossible. The pod must adapt quickly or face serious consequences. Riding out a major storm requires techniques that can't be learned in calm weather. Your pod forms a tight defensive formation with stronger swimmers on the outside to help protect weaker members from the worst wave action. Everyone must synchronize their breathing with the wave patterns, surfacing only when conditions allow safe access to air. Mistiming a breath attempt can result in lungs full of seawater instead of oxygen. Your smaller size actually becomes an advantage during the storm. While larger whales struggle with the massive energy expenditure required to fight heavy seas, you can position yourself in the lee of adult bodies, using their bulk as windbreaks. Your mother and other adults deliberately create sheltered spaces where younger pod members can rest between the demanding efforts required for survival. But storms also create opportunities for those smart enough to exploit them. The violent surface conditions drive many prey species deeper, concentrating them in layers where false killer whales excel at hunting. Between the worst weather periods, your pod conducts some of the most productive hunts you've ever witnessed, taking advantage of fish behavior patterns disrupted by the storm conditions above. The storm lasts for 3 days, testing every aspect of your physical and mental development. By the time conditions finally calm, you've gained invaluable experience in extreme weather survival. You've learned to read wave patterns, to time your breathing with surface conditions, and to use group cooperation to survive conditions that would overwhelm any individual whale. Your 18th month marks the beginning of your transition toward adult responsibilities within the pod. The adults start assigning you specific roles during hunts, expecting you to execute complex maneuvers with guidance minimal. Your echolocation skills have developed to the point where you can contribute meaningfully to the pod's acoustic coordination during cooperative hunting efforts. Your first assignment as a designated hunter comes during an attack on a school of skipjack tuna. Your role is to prevent escape attempts on the southern flank of the formation while more experienced hunters drive the main school toward a killing zone. It's a position that requires perfect timing and spatial awareness. Move too early, and you alert the prey to the trap. Move too late, and fish escape through gaps in the formation. The hunt unfolds exactly as planned, with your contribution proving crucial to its success. When a group of tuna attempts to break away from the main school, your positioning and timing are perfect. You drive them back toward the killing zone, where other pod members complete the attack. For the first time, you've functioned as an integral part of the pod's hunting machine, rather than just a participant in training exercises. Your success in your assigned role earns you recognition from the pod's most experienced hunters. They begin sharing advanced techniques that are typically reserved for proven adults, teaching you the subtle acoustic signals used to coordinate complex multi-phase attacks. You're being inducted into the inner circle of the pod's hunting elite, a recognition that comes with both privileges and responsibilities. But adult responsibilities also mean adult consequences for mistakes. When you misjudge a hunting approach and allow an entire school of fish to escape, the pod's reaction is swift and unforgiving. Food resources are too precious to waste on training exercises that go wrong. Your hunting privileges are temporarily suspended while you receive additional instruction in the techniques you obviously haven't mastered yet. Your 19th month brings your first encounter with a pod member's death. An elderly female who has been part of your family for as long as you can remember begins showing signs of serious illness. She struggles to keep up during travel. Her echolocation calls become weaker and less frequent, and she requires assistance from other pod members to maintain her position near the surface for breathing. The pod's response to her declining condition demonstrates the deep social bonds that hold false killer whale families together. Adults take turns supporting her at the surface, ensuring she can breathe even when her own strength fails. They share their food with her, bringing choice pieces from successful hunts directly to her position. The entire group slows its travel pace to accommodate her limitations. But despite their efforts, her condition continues to deteriorate. You watch as she makes increasingly desperate attempts to participate in normal pod activities, driven by instincts that no longer match her physical capabilities. Her distress calls become more frequent, expressing frustration and confusion as her body fails to respond to commands that have worked for decades. The end comes quietly during a routine rest period. She simply stops breathing, her body gradually sinking toward the depths while the pod maintains a protective circle around her. The adult's vocalizations during this period are unlike anything you've heard before. Complex, mournful sounds that seem to express grief in a way that transcends species boundaries. Your first experience with death within the pod teaches you about the temporary nature of all life in the ocean. The elderly female's knowledge, her hunting techniques, her social relationships, all of that disappears with her passing. Only the lessons she taught to younger pod members survive, passed down through the cultural transmission that preserves important survival information across generations. The pod's behavior changes subtly in the days following her death. Adults become more protective of younger members, more cautious about risky hunting strategies, more focused on group cohesion during travel. Death serves as a reminder that survival in the ocean is never guaranteed, even for the most experienced and intelligent predators. Your 20th month coincides with a significant shift in your pod's territory. Climate change has altered ocean current patterns, shifting the distribution of prey species your family has hunted for generations. Traditional hunting grounds that once supported abundant marine life now offer little food, forcing the pod to explore new areas and develop new strategies. The search for productive hunting grounds takes your pod into waters they've never explored before. These unfamiliar territories present new challenges, different current patterns, unfamiliar prey species, and potential conflicts with other predator populations that already consider these areas their home. Your pod must balance the need for new food sources against the risks of entering unknown territory. Your first exploration of virgin hunting grounds is both exciting and terrifying. The water here feels different, with temperature and salinity patterns that create unfamiliar acoustic properties. Your echolocation calls behave differently in this new environment, requiring adjustments to techniques you've spent months perfecting. Even basic navigation becomes more challenging when acoustic landmarks don't match your previous experience. But new territory also offers new opportunities. Your pod discovers prey species they've never encountered before, fish with behavior patterns that existing hunting techniques don't address. The challenge of adapting to these new targets pushes your predatory skills in directions you never anticipated. You're forced to develop innovative approaches that combine traditional techniques with creative solutions to novel problems. Your own contribution to territory exploration proves more valuable than expected. Your youth and inexperience, typically disadvantages in established hunting grounds, become assets when everyone is dealing with unfamiliar conditions. Your willingness to experiment with unproven techniques sometimes leads to discoveries that more conservative adult hunters might miss. The successful expansion into new territory demonstrates your pod's adaptability in the face of environmental change. Climate change and human activities will continue altering ocean conditions throughout your lifetime, making adaptability as important as traditional hunting skills for long-term survival. Your generation of false killer whales may need to be more flexible than any previous generation. Your 21st month brings your first serious injury during a hunting accident. While pursuing a large mahi-mahi through a coral reef area, you misjudge the distance to a sharp coral formation and slice a deep gash along your left flank. The injury bleeds heavily, creating a scent trail that could attract sharks and other predators to your location. The pod's response to your injury is immediate and sophisticated. Adults surround you to mask the blood scent, while others scout the area for potential threats attracted by the smell. Your mother examines the wound carefully with her rostrum, assessing its severity and determining what treatment might be possible. False killer whales don't have hands, but they've developed techniques for helping injured pod members that work within their physical limitations. The injury forces you to confront your own mortality in ways you haven't considered before. Pain radiates from the wound with each movement, making normal swimming patterns difficult and exhausting. You're suddenly aware of how dependent you are on your physical capabilities for survival, and how quickly those capabilities can be compromised by accidents or attacks. Your recovery takes several weeks, during which your role within the pod changes dramatically. Unable to participate in demanding hunts, you're relegated to less strenuous activities like scouting and communication relay duties. Other pod members share their food with you, ensuring you maintain the nutrition needed for healing despite your inability to hunt effectively. The experience of being temporarily disabled teaches you important lessons about pod interdependence. No individual, no matter how skilled or strong, can survive alone in the ocean. The social bonds that sometimes feel constraining during healthy periods become lifelines during times of weakness or injury. Your pod's willingness to support you during recovery reinforces your commitment to supporting others when they need help. Your healing wound also provides education about your body's remarkable regenerative capabilities. Marine mammals have evolved sophisticated healing mechanisms that allow recovery from injuries that would be fatal to terrestrial animals. Your gash closes gradually, leaving a scar that will mark your flank for the rest of your life, a permanent reminder of the dangers inherent in ocean predation. Your 22nd month marks your emergence as a fully capable hunter and respected pod member. Your injury has healed completely, leaving you stronger and more cautious than before. Adults no longer treat you as a juvenile requiring constant supervision. You're recognized as a contributing member of the hunting team with specific skills and responsibilities. Your specialization begins to emerge during this period. While all false killer whales are generalist predators, individual pod members often develop expertise in particular hunting techniques or prey species. Your experiences with innovative approaches to unfamiliar prey have established you as the pod's specialist in adaptive hunting strategies. When traditional techniques fail, adults increasingly look to you for alternative approaches. This specialization brings new responsibilities and expectations. During challenging hunts, you're often assigned the most difficult targets, prey species that require creative solutions rather than standard techniques. Your success rate with these challenging assignments continues to improve as you gain experience, but the pressure to perform consistently becomes intense. Your growing reputation within the pod also attracts attention from other young adults, particularly females, who are beginning to evaluate potential mates. False killer whale courtship is subtle and complex, involving demonstrations of hunting prowess, social intelligence, and physical condition that can continue for months. You're beginning to participate in these complex social evaluations, both as an evaluator and as a candidate. The mating displays you observe among older pod members are sophisticated examples of behavioral evolution. Males demonstrate their hunting skills through elaborate prey capture techniques that go far beyond simple food acquisition. Females evaluate these displays not just for immediate hunting competence, but for the problem-solving abilities and adaptability that will be crucial for raising offspring in changing ocean conditions. Your own attempts at courtship displays are clumsy and ineffective, drawing more amusement than admiration from potential mates. But you're learning the subtle social signals that govern false killer whale reproduction, understanding the complex criteria that females use to select partners. Physical strength and hunting ability are important, but intelligence, creativity, and social compatibility are equally crucial for successful pair bonding. Your 23rd month brings your first experience with human-whale conflict that goes beyond simple avoidance or coexistence. Your pod encounters a commercial fishing operation that has deployed massive nets in an area where false killer whales have hunted for generations. The nets don't just compete for the same fish, they create deadly hazards that can trap and drown marine mammals. The initial encounter seems routine. Your pod approaches the fishing area cautiously, using echolocation to map the location and extent of the nets. The plan is simple avoidance. Hunt elsewhere until the fishing operation moves on. But one of your pod's younger members, perhaps distracted by the abundant fish trapped in the nets, swims too close to the fishing gear and becomes entangled. The rescue operation that follows is complex and dangerous. The trapped whale's struggles only tighten the synthetic mesh around her body, cutting into her flesh and restricting her breathing. Other pod members must approach close enough to help without becoming entangled themselves. The work requires precise coordination and constant vigilance for additional hazards. Your own role in the rescue involves using your smaller size and maneuverability to access areas where larger whales can't safely operate. You work carefully with your teeth to cut through net fibers, following instructions from more experienced pod members who guide the operation from safer positions. The work is exhausting and dangerous, requiring hours of concentrated effort in increasingly desperate conditions. The rescue ultimately succeeds, but the trapped whale suffers significant injuries from the nets and the stress of prolonged entanglement. She'll recover, but the experience leaves the entire pod with a deeper understanding of the hazards created by human fishing activities. What seemed like simple resource competition has revealed itself as a life-threatening conflict between human technology and whale survival. Your pod's response to this encounter is swift and decisive. They begin actively avoiding areas with commercial fishing activities, even when those areas offer abundant prey. The risk of entanglement outweighs the potential benefits of hunting in fish-rich waters. It's a strategic decision that prioritizes pod safety over short-term feeding opportunities. But avoidance isn't always possible. Commercial fishing operations are expanding into areas that were once remote wilderness, creating conflicts in regions where whales once hunted safely. Your pod must develop new strategies for coexisting with human activities that pose direct threats to whale survival. The ocean is becoming a more dangerous place for marine mammals as human technology becomes more sophisticated and widespread. Your 24th month marks 2 full years of life, growth, and learning. You've survived your first territorial disputes, learned advanced hunting techniques, experienced injury and recovery, and begun participating in the complex social rituals that govern false killer whale reproduction. You've grown from a helpless newborn into a capable predator and respected pod member. But in terms of false killer whale development, you're still barely past adolescence. Adult false killer whales can live for 60 years or more, accumulating decades of experience and knowledge that make them increasingly formidable predators and wise pod leaders. Your 2 years of experience represent only the beginning of a lifetime of learning and adaptation. The ocean around you continues to change at an accelerating pace. Climate change alters current patterns and prey distributions. Human activities introduce new hazards and reduce available habitat. Pollution affects the health of marine ecosystems at every level. Your generation of false killer whales will face challenges that previous generations never encountered. But you're also part of a species that has demonstrated remarkable resilience and adaptability throughout its evolutionary history. False killer whales have survived ice ages, volcanic eruptions, and dramatic changes in ocean conditions by combining individual intelligence with collective problem-solving abilities. Your pod represents thousands of years of accumulated survival wisdom, and that knowledge provides a foundation for adapting to future challenges. The skills you've developed during your first 2 years, adaptive hunting, social cooperation, environmental awareness, and innovative problem solving, will serve you well as you continue to mature. But the real test of your abilities lies ahead in the decades of challenges and opportunities that will define your adult life as one of the ocean's most intelligent and adaptable predators. Your 3rd year begins with a revelation that changes everything you thought you knew about hunting. The pod encounters a massive school of yellowfin tuna, but instead of attacking immediately, the adults hold back. You watch in confusion as hundreds of prime targets swim within striking distance, yet no one moves. Then you notice what the experienced hunters already see: pilot whales approaching from the north, and they're not here to share. The standoff that develops is unlike the territorial disputes you've witnessed before. These pilot whales aren't just competing for hunting grounds. They're actively trying to steal prey that your pod has already located and positioned to attack. It's oceanic piracy, and your pod's response reveals hunting strategies you never knew existed. Instead of abandoning the tuna school, your pod begins a complex deception operation. The adults split into 2 groups. One group continues to circle the tuna school, obviously, maintaining the pilot whale's attention and making them believe they're observing a standard hunting formation. Meanwhile, the second group disappears entirely, using deep diving and acoustic silence to become invisible to both the competing whales and the prey below. You're assigned to the decoy group, learning firsthand how misdirection can be as powerful as direct attack. The deception works perfectly. While the pilot whales focus on the obvious threat above, the hidden hunters position themselves beneath the tuna school. When the attack finally comes, it's devastating and coordinated. The tuna find themselves trapped between 2 hunting formations with no escape routes available. The pilot whales can only watch as your pod executes one of the most sophisticated hunting strategies in the ocean. Your role in this deception hunt marks another step toward full adult status. You weren't just following orders or mimicking techniques. You were actively participating in strategic thinking that required understanding multiple layers of deception simultaneously. You had to maintain the appearance of normal hunting behavior while knowing that the real attack would come from a completely different direction. The success against the pilot whales establishes your pod's reputation in these waters. Word spreads through the complex communication networks that connect different whale populations across vast distances. Your family becomes known as innovative hunters who can't be easily intimidated or outmaneuvered by competing predators. This reputation brings both respect and additional challenges as other pods test themselves against your group's abilities. Your acoustic skills reach new levels of sophistication during this period. You learn to modulate your echolocation calls in ways that disguise your true intentions from other intelligent marine mammals. False killer whales aren't the only species that can interpret acoustic information. Dolphins, pilot whales, and even some shark species can extract tactical information from echolocation patterns. Learning to hunt effectively while maintaining acoustic secrecy becomes crucial for success. Your fourth year brings your first experience with long-distance migration. The pod joins a massive movement of marine life following seasonal prey migrations across entire ocean basins. This isn't the regional territory shifts you've experienced before. This is a journey spanning thousands of miles through waters you've never seen, following ancient routes that your species has used for millennia. The migration reveals the true scale of ocean ecosystems. You encounter whale populations you didn't know existed, each group adapted to specific regions and prey types. Arctic false killer whales are larger and more heavily built than your tropical pod, designed for hunting in cold waters with different prey species. Deep-sea specialists have developed enhanced diving abilities that allow them to hunt at depths your pod rarely visits. But migration also exposes you to human activities on a scale you've never imagined. Shipping lanes crisscross the ocean like underwater highways, filled with vessels that create noise pollution affecting whale communication across hundreds of miles. Military sonar testing disrupts navigation and hunting in ways that can persist for days after the operations end. Offshore drilling platforms create permanent acoustic hazards that force wildlife to abandon traditional migration routes. Your pod's response to these obstacles demonstrates the kind of adaptability that has allowed false killer whales to survive human expansion into marine environments. Traditional migration routes are modified to avoid the worst shipping traffic. Hunting strategies are adjusted to account for background noise that masks acoustic communication. Rest periods are scheduled around military activities that would otherwise interfere with normal behavior patterns. The most challenging aspect of modern migration is the unpredictability of human activities. Unlike natural hazards that follow seasonal patterns, human operations can change without warning. A quiet shipping lane can suddenly become a major traffic corridor. Military exercises can begin in areas that were peaceful the day before. Your pod must maintain constant vigilance and flexibility to navigate an ocean increasingly dominated by human activities. Your own contribution to migration survival involves your developing expertise in acoustic analysis. You become skilled at identifying different types of human-generated sounds and predicting their likely impact on pod activities. Ship engines have distinctive signatures that reveal vessel size, speed, and probable cargo. Military sonar follows patterns that can be used to predict operational schedules and safe corridors for whale travel. This acoustic intelligence becomes valuable not just for your own pod, but for other whale groups you encounter during migration. Information sharing between pods creates informal networks that help multiple species avoid human hazards. Your ability to interpret and communicate information about human activities makes you a valuable liaison between different marine mammal populations. Your 5th year marks your emergence as a fully mature adult with specialized skills that benefit the entire pod. Your reputation as an innovative hunter and acoustic specialist has grown to the point where other pods specifically seek out your family for cooperative ventures. You're no longer just a member of your birth pod. You're becoming a recognized expert whose knowledge is valued across the broader false killer whale community. Your first major leadership role comes during a complex hunt involving multiple pods working together to attack a massive school of skipjack tuna. The coordination required for such operations goes beyond anything you've participated in before. Hundreds of whales must work in perfect synchronization, with split-second timing determining the difference between spectacular success and complete failure. Your assignment is to coordinate acoustic communication between pods that use slightly different dialects and calling patterns. It's like serving as a translator in a high-stakes military operation where miscommunication could result in injuries or lost opportunities. You must understand not just the content of messages, but the subtle variations in acoustic patterns that carry additional meaning between different whale populations. The multipod hunt succeeds beyond all expectations, with coordination so precise that prey species have no opportunity to escape or regroup. Your role in facilitating communication between groups earns recognition from pod leaders who have decades more experience than you. For the first time, you're acknowledged not just as a skilled individual, but as a whale whose abilities contribute to the success of the broader false killer whale community. This recognition brings new responsibilities and opportunities. You're invited to participate in decision-making processes that affect multiple pods, helping to plan migration routes and hunting strategies for hundreds of whales. Your voice carries weight in discussions about territory disputes, resource allocation, and responses to human activities that threaten whale populations. Your 6th year introduces you to the complex politics of false killer whale society at the highest levels. Regional populations maintain loose hierarchies based on hunting success, territorial control, and the ability to resolve conflicts between competing groups. Your pod's growing reputation has elevated your family's status within these hierarchies, bringing both privileges and obligations. You attend your first inter-pod council, a gathering of leaders from across the region who meet to discuss threats and opportunities affecting all false killer whale populations. These councils operate through consensus rather than dominance, with decisions emerging from complex negotiations that can continue for days. Your role is primarily observational, but you're learning the subtle diplomatic skills needed to maintain cooperation between groups that might otherwise compete for resources. The primary topic of discussion is human impact on marine ecosystems and how false killer whale populations should respond. Climate change is altering prey distributions and ocean conditions faster than traditional adaptation mechanisms can accommodate. Commercial fishing operations are reducing available food sources while creating entanglement hazards. Shipping traffic and industrial activities are making acoustic communication increasingly difficult. Some council members advocate for more aggressive responses to human activities, including coordinated harassment of fishing operations and deliberate interference with shipping routes. Others argue for continued avoidance and adaptation, believing that direct conflict with humans would ultimately harm whale populations more than current coexistence strategies. The debates reveal deep philosophical differences about how intelligent marine mammals should interact with the dominant terrestrial species. Your own contribution to these discussions focuses on information sharing and early warning systems. Your acoustic skills and experience with human activity patterns make you valuable for developing communication networks that can alert whale populations to emerging threats. It's a technical rather than political role, but one that could significantly improve survival rates for marine mammals throughout the region. The Council reaches consensus on several important initiatives, including standardized warning calls for different types of human activities and protocols for sharing information about safe travel corridors. These agreements represent the first steps toward coordinated response strategies that could help whale populations adapt more effectively to accelerating environmental changes. Your 7th year brings unexpected tragedy that tests everything you've learned about leadership and community support. A massive oil spill contaminates hundreds of square miles of ocean, creating toxic conditions that persist for months. The contamination affects not just your pod, but dozens of marine mammal populations throughout the region, creating a crisis that requires unprecedented cooperation between species. Your pod's response to the oil spill demonstrates the value of the skills and relationships you've developed over the years. Your acoustic expertise proves crucial for coordinating rescue operations and guiding uncontaminated whale populations away from the worst affected areas. Your connections with other pods facilitate resource sharing and mutual support during the most challenging period any of you have experienced. The environmental damage extends far beyond immediate toxicity. The oil spill disrupts marine food webs at every level, from the smallest plankton to the largest predators. Prey species die off or relocate to uncontaminated areas, creating food shortages that affect whale populations hundreds of miles from the original spill site. Your pod must adapt hunting strategies developed over generations to cope with ecological disruption on a scale that has no precedent. Recovery from the oil spill takes years and reveals the true resilience of marine mammal communities. Pods that might normally compete for resources instead share information and hunting grounds. Experienced adults take responsibility for orphaned juveniles from other groups. The crisis brings out both the worst effects of human industrial activity and the best examples of interspecies cooperation. Your own role in the recovery efforts establishes your reputation as a leader who can be trusted during crisis situations. Your ability to maintain effective communication between stressed and traumatized whale populations proves invaluable for coordinating survival strategies. Other pods begin specifically requesting your assistance when they encounter challenging situations requiring innovative solutions. The oil spill also provides harsh lessons about the vulnerability of ocean ecosystems to human activities. Despite their intelligence and adaptability, marine mammals remain dependent on environmental conditions that can be destroyed by industrial accidents or deliberate pollution. Your generation of false killer whales must learn to survive in an ocean where such catastrophes are becoming more frequent and severe. Your 8th year marks your transition from individual excellence to community leadership. Your reputation for innovative problem solving and effective communication has spread throughout the regional false killer whale population, making you a sought-after advisor for pods facing difficult challenges. You're no longer just a successful hunter. You're becoming a recognized expert whose knowledge benefits the entire community. Your first formal leadership appointment comes when you're asked to coordinate a regional response to increasing military sonar testing in traditional feeding areas. The high-intensity sonar used in these operations can cause permanent hearing damage in marine mammals, effectively ending their ability to hunt and communicate. Multiple pods must work together to develop strategies that protect whale populations while avoiding direct confrontation with military operations. The solution you develop involves sophisticated acoustic monitoring that allows whale populations to predict military activities and evacuate affected areas before sonar testing begins. It requires coordination between dozens of pods across thousands of square miles of ocean, with split-second timing crucial for preventing injuries. The success of this program establishes you as a leader capable of managing complex operations involving multiple species and competing interests. Your leadership style emphasizes consensus building and information sharing rather than dominance or coercion. You've learned that false killer whale society functions best when decisions emerge from collective intelligence rather than individual authority. Your role is to facilitate communication and coordinate resources, not to impose solutions on populations that understand their local conditions better than any outside expert. The regional coordination network you establish becomes a model for similar programs in other parts of the ocean. Whale populations that were previously isolated begin sharing information about environmental conditions, human activities, and successful adaptation strategies. The network effect multiplies the problem-solving capabilities of individual pods, creating collective intelligence that can respond to challenges no single group could handle alone. Your 9th year brings personal fulfillment as you finally succeed in attracting a mate who shares your interests and capabilities. False killer whale courtship is complex and prolonged, involving demonstrations of hunting prowess, social intelligence, and compatibility that can continue for months. Your partner is an accomplished hunter from another pod whose acoustic skills complement your own abilities. The pair bonding process reveals new dimensions of false killer whale intelligence and social complexity. Your relationship involves not just physical attraction, but intellectual partnership that enhances both of your capabilities. Together, you develop hunting techniques that neither could master individually, combining your respective strengths to create approaches that are more effective than the sum of their parts. Your mate's pod brings different cultural knowledge and hunting traditions that expand your own understanding of false killer whale society. Different populations have developed unique solutions to common problems, and the exchange of information between your families creates innovations that benefit both groups. Your relationship becomes a bridge between different whale communities, facilitating cooperation that extends far beyond your personal partnership. The decision to start your own family brings new responsibilities and concerns about the kind of ocean your offspring will inherit. Environmental conditions are changing rapidly, and traditional survival strategies may not be adequate for future challenges. You must balance the desire to pass on cultural knowledge developed over generations with the need to prepare your children for a world that may be very different from the one you've known. Your 10th year culminates with the birth of your first calf, completing your transformation from dependent juvenile to responsible adult. The tiny whale that emerges represents not just your genetic legacy, but the future of false killer whale intelligence and adaptability. Everything you've learned over the past decade will be tested in your ability to prepare this new generation for the challenges ahead. The birth takes place in the same deep ocean waters where you began your own life, but the world your calf enters is significantly different from the one you knew as a newborn. Human activities have expanded into areas that were once pristine wilderness. Climate change has altered ocean conditions in ways that affect prey distributions and migration patterns. New technologies create hazards that didn't exist when you were learning to survive, but your calf also inherits advantages that previous generations didn't possess. The communication networks you've helped establish provide early warning systems for environmental hazards. The cooperative relationships between pods create support systems that can assist families during crises. The accumulated knowledge of human activities offers strategies for coexisting with the dominant terrestrial species. Your role as a parent will test every skill you've developed and every lesson you've learned. You must teach traditional hunting techniques while preparing your offspring for innovations that may be necessary for future survival. You must pass on cultural knowledge while encouraging the kind of creative thinking that allows adaptation to changing conditions. The ocean stretches endlessly around you and your new family, filled with opportunities and dangers that will shape your calf's development. Your own journey from helpless newborn to accomplished adult and community leader has prepared you for this moment. Now begins the most important challenge of your life, ensuring that the next generation of false killer whales can thrive in whatever conditions the future may bring. Your 11th year brings a sobering reality that changes how you view your species' place in the ocean. The calf you've been raising with such care begins showing signs of severe illness, something that has nothing to do with predators or accidents. His echolocation calls become weaker, his swimming less coordinated. When you examine him closely, you notice lesions on his skin that weren't there before. The contamination isn't visible like an oil spill. It's chemical pollution that has worked its way up through the entire food chain, concentrating in the bodies of apex predators like your family. Every fish you've caught, every successful hunt that seemed like a victory, has been slowly poisoning your calf from the inside. The toxins build up in marine mammal tissue faster than they can be eliminated, creating health problems that previous generations never faced. Your pod rallies around your sick calf, but their support can't fix what industrial chemicals have already damaged. The adults share their cleanest food, try to guide your family toward less contaminated hunting grounds, offer comfort through gentle touches and vocalizations, but they all understand what you're struggling to accept. Some human impacts can't be avoided through intelligence or adaptation. The decline is gradual but relentless. Your calf's playful curiosity gives way to lethargy and confusion. His attempts to participate in hunting practice become increasingly feeble. Other young whales in the pod maintain respectful distance, instinctively understanding that whatever is affecting him might be contagious. The isolation makes his suffering even more heartbreaking. Your mate's grief matches your own, but she expresses it differently. Where you become obsessive about finding solutions that don't exist, she focuses on providing comfort during your calf's remaining time. She stays close to him constantly, supporting his body when he struggles to maintain buoyancy, offering gentle acoustic encouragement when he becomes distressed. Her acceptance of the inevitable helps you understand that sometimes love means letting go. The end comes during what should have been a routine rest period. Your calf simply stops breathing, his small body finally overwhelmed by toxins that his developing organs couldn't process. The pod gathers in a protective circle as he sinks slowly toward the depths, their mournful vocalizations creating a funeral song that carries for miles through the water. You follow his descent until the darkness swallows him completely. Recovery from this loss takes months and changes your perspective on everything you thought you understood about ocean survival. Intelligence and cooperation can overcome many challenges, but they're powerless against contamination that affects the basic chemistry of life itself. Your species' position at the top of the food web, once a source of pride and power, now feels like a vulnerability that grows more dangerous each year. Your 12th year forces you to confront questions about whether bringing new life into this contaminated ocean is ethical or responsible. The chemical burden in your own body continues to increase with each meal, each successful hunt adding to the toxic load you would pass on to any future offspring. Your mate shares these concerns, and together you make the difficult decision to delay reproduction until conditions improve, if they ever do. The decision not to breed immediately puts you in conflict with biological drives that have shaped your species for millions of years. False killer whales are programmed to reproduce when they reach maturity, to contribute to the genetic diversity that ensures species survival. Choosing to remain childless, even temporarily, feels like abandoning your evolutionary purpose, but it also feels like the only responsible choice given current environmental conditions. Your pod's reaction to your reproductive decision is complex and divided. Older adults who remember cleaner oceans from their youth understand your concerns, but worry about declining birth rates across all whale populations. Younger pod members who have never known uncontaminated conditions see your choice as excessive caution that could doom the species through inaction rather than toxic exposure. The debate within your pod reflects larger discussions happening throughout false killer whale communities worldwide. Birth rates are declining, not just because of pollution, but because intelligent whales are making conscious decisions about reproduction based on environmental assessments. It's an unprecedented situation where cognitive abilities that evolved to enhance survival are now being used to question the wisdom of species continuation. Your own contribution to these discussions emphasizes the need for long-term thinking rather than short-term emotional responses. If current contamination levels continue to increase, bringing calves into the world may be condemning them to suffering and early death. But if whale populations stop reproducing entirely, the species faces certain extinction within a generation. Finding the right balance requires wisdom that goes beyond traditional survival instincts. Your 13th year brings an unexpected opportunity to contribute to scientific research that might help address the contamination problems affecting your species. A team of marine biologists approaches your pod with non-invasive monitoring equipment designed to track pollution levels in whale tissues without causing harm or distress. Their work represents the first serious human effort to understand and address the chemical threats facing marine mammals. Your decision to participate in the research program isn't made lightly. Previous experiences with humans have been mixed at best, and trusting them with close-range access to your pod requires overcoming instincts developed over years of avoiding human activities. But the potential benefits of contributing to pollution research outweigh the risks, especially if the data might lead to policy changes that protect future generations. The research process reveals the sophisticated monitoring capabilities that human technology can provide when used constructively rather than destructively. Satellite tags track your pod's movements through contaminated and clean water areas, documenting how pollution exposure varies with location and feeding habits. Blood samples taken during brief, careful captures provide detailed chemical analysis that maps toxin concentrations in your body with unprecedented precision. So, the results are sobering, but not entirely hopeless. While contamination levels in your tissues are indeed dangerous, they haven't reached the critical thresholds that cause immediate reproductive failure. More importantly, the research identifies specific geographic areas where contamination levels are significantly lower, suggesting that careful habitat selection might reduce toxic exposure enough to make reproduction viable again. Your cooperation with the research program establishes you as a bridge between human and whale communities, facilitating communication between species that share the same threatened ocean environment. The scientists learn about whale behavior and ecology from your pod's natural activities, while you gain access to information about contamination patterns that could inform future survival strategies. The data from your pod's participation contributes to the first comprehensive assessment of chemical pollution in marine mammal populations throughout your region. The research findings provide evidence that influences government policies about industrial discharge, commercial fishing practices, and shipping route management. For the first time, your species has a voice in human decision-making processes that affect ocean health. Your 14th year marks a turning point as the research data finally leads to concrete environmental protections that benefit marine mammal populations. New regulations limit the discharge of the most dangerous chemicals into ocean waters, while shipping companies are required to use cleaner fuels in critical marine mammal habitats. The changes aren't comprehensive enough to solve all pollution problems, but they represent the first serious effort to address chemical contamination at its sources. The improvement in water quality isn't immediate or dramatic, but sensitive monitoring equipment detects measurable reductions in toxin concentrations within months of the new regulations taking effect. More importantly, the trend lines suggest that contamination levels will continue to decline if the protective policies remain in place and expand to cover additional pollution sources. Your decision to resume reproduction is based on careful analysis of the improved environmental conditions rather than emotional longing for offspring. The contamination levels in your body have decreased enough to make successful breeding possible, while the continuing trend toward cleaner water suggests that future calves will face better conditions than the previous generation. It's still not ideal, but it's manageable with careful habitat selection and feeding strategies. Your mate shares your cautious optimism about environmental improvements and agrees that conditions have improved enough to justify having another calf. The decision brings relief from years of suppressed reproductive drives, but also anxiety about whether you're making the right choice for your potential offspring. The responsibility of bringing new life into a still threatened environment weighs heavily on both of you. The conception process is more deliberate and conscious than typical false killer whale reproduction. Instead of relying purely on biological instincts, you and your mate carefully time breeding to coincide with periods when you're hunting in the cleanest available waters. Every decision about feeding and travel during gestation is made with consideration for minimizing toxic exposure to your developing calf. Your pod's support during the second pregnancy is even stronger than during your first. The adults have learned from the tragedy of your previous calf's death and are determined to do everything possible to ensure better outcomes this time. They guide your family toward hunting grounds with lower contamination levels, share the cleanest portions of their own catches, and provide extra protection during the vulnerable periods of pregnancy and early development. Your 15th year culminates with the birth of your second calf in waters that are measurably cleaner than those where your first offspring was born. The improvement isn't dramatic, but sophisticated monitoring equipment confirms that toxin levels have decreased enough to give this new life a significantly better chance of survival. The birth itself proceeds normally, without the complications that chemical contamination can cause in reproductive processes. Your new calf shows none of the early warning signs that marked your first offspring's illness. His echolocation develops normally. His swimming becomes coordinated and confident, and his growth rate matches the healthy patterns documented in pre-pollution whale populations. Regular health monitoring through the research program confirms that his tissue contamination levels, while still present, remain within ranges that shouldn't cause developmental problems. The successful birth and healthy development of your second calf represents more than personal triumph. It demonstrates that environmental protection efforts can produce measurable benefits for marine mammal populations. Other pods throughout the region report similar improvements in calf survival rates, suggesting that the policy changes influenced by your research participation are having widespread positive effects. Your role as both parent and environmental advocate expands as other whale families seek guidance about reproduction in contaminated environments. Your experience with both loss and success makes you a valuable advisor for pods trying to make their own decisions about breeding timing and habitat selection. The knowledge you've gained through personal tragedy and scientific collaboration benefits the entire false killer whale community. Your 16th year brings recognition as a leader in the emerging field of human-whale cooperation for environmental protection. Your success in bridging the gap between species has inspired similar research programs throughout the world's oceans, creating a global network of marine mammal participants in pollution monitoring and habitat protection efforts. You've become living proof that intelligent cooperation between humans and whales can produce benefits for both species. The expansion of cooperative research programs creates opportunities for false killer whale populations to influence environmental policies on scales that were previously impossible. Whale-generated data about pollution patterns, prey distribution changes, and habitat degradation provides information that human technology alone cannot gather. The combination of whale intelligence and human analytical capabilities creates monitoring systems more comprehensive than either species could develop independently. Your own expertise in acoustic communication proves crucial for coordinating research efforts between different whale populations and human scientists. You develop standardized calling patterns that allow whales to report environmental conditions and health status across language barriers that previously made interpod communication difficult. These acoustic protocols become the foundation for a biological monitoring network spanning entire ocean basins. The success of human-whale cooperation in addressing pollution problems encourages expansion into other environmental challenges. Climate change impacts on ocean conditions require monitoring and adaptation strategies that benefit from both human technology and whale knowledge. Your species' understanding of deep ocean conditions and long-term environmental patterns provides data that improves human climate models while helping whale populations adapt to changing conditions. Your 17th year marks your emergence as an elder whose experience spans the transition from environmental decline to the beginning of recovery. Younger whales seek your guidance, not just about hunting and survival, but about the complex relationships between whale populations and human activities. Your life story becomes a template for how intelligent marine mammals can influence their own environmental future through strategic cooperation with the dominant terrestrial species. The calf you thought you had lost to pollution has grown into a healthy juvenile whose development demonstrates that environmental protection efforts can succeed when properly implemented and maintained. His acoustic skills surpass those of previous generations, possibly because reduced chemical contamination has allowed normal neurological development. His hunting abilities combine traditional techniques with innovations adapted to current ocean conditions. Your mate has become pregnant again, confident now that environmental conditions support successful reproduction. The decision to expand your family represents faith in the continuing improvement of ocean health and the effectiveness of cooperative conservation efforts. This third pregnancy proceeds in waters that are cleaner than any your species has experienced in decades, offering hope for even better outcomes. Your pod's role in environmental monitoring has evolved into a permanent partnership with human research institutions that provides benefits for both communities. Whales receive early warning about emerging pollution sources and access to the cleanest available hunting grounds. Humans gain real-time data about ocean conditions and marine ecosystem health that improves their understanding of environmental challenges and the effectiveness of protection measures. The model of human-whale cooperation you've helped to develop is being adapted for collaboration with other intelligent marine species. Dolphins, pilot whales, and even some shark populations are beginning to participate in research programs that combine their natural capabilities with human technology to address shared environmental challenges. The ocean is becoming a place where multiple intelligent species work together rather than simply competing for resources. Your 18th year brings the satisfaction of seeing your life's work produce lasting positive changes for your species and your environment. The ocean waters where your third calf will be born are cleaner than they've been in generations, not through natural recovery, but through deliberate cooperation between humans and marine mammals. Your personal tragedy has become the foundation for species-wide environmental protection that benefits all ocean life. The communication networks you've helped establish now connect whale populations across multiple ocean basins, creating early warning systems for environmental threats and coordinating responses to challenges that affect entire ecosystems. Your acoustic innovations have become standard protocols used by marine mammals throughout the world, demonstrating how individual expertise can scale up to benefit entire species. Your own family has become a symbol of successful adaptation to environmental challenges through intelligence, cooperation, and strategic thinking rather than simply biological resilience. The healthy development of your surviving calf proves that marine mammal populations can recover from even severe pollution impacts when protection efforts are properly implemented and maintained over time. The research programs you helped initiate have expanded into comprehensive ocean health monitoring systems that provide early detection of environmental problems before they become critical threats. Human policymakers now have access to marine mammal perspectives on environmental conditions, while whale populations receive scientific information about pollution sources and habitat protection strategies. Your 19th year represents the culmination of nearly 2 decades of environmental advocacy and species leadership. The ocean your third calf will inherit is not the pristine wilderness that existed before human industrialization, but it's a managed environment where intelligent species cooperate to maintain conditions that support healthy marine ecosystems. Your life's work has helped create a new model for planetary stewardship that combines human technology with the wisdom of species that have survived in the ocean for millions of years. The legacy you're building extends far beyond your own pod or even your own species. The cooperative relationships you've fostered between humans and marine mammals have created precedents for addressing environmental challenges that affect all life on Earth. Your story demonstrates that intelligence and communication can overcome seemingly insurmountable problems when different species work together rather than competing for dominance. Your 20th year approaches with the anticipation of new life entering an ocean that offers hope rather than despair for future generations. The journey from your own birth in deep, clean waters to your role as an environmental leader has spanned the worst period of ocean pollution in planetary history and the beginning of recovery through cooperative effort. Your third calf will be born into a world where marine mammals have a voice in their own environmental future, a legacy that ensures your species' intelligence will continue to influence ocean health for generations to come. Your 20th year brings the birth of your third calf in waters that represent everything you fought to achieve. The moment she breaks the surface for her first breath, you know she's different from your previous offspring. Her echolocation clicks are strong and clear, her movements coordinated and purposeful. The contamination levels that would have doomed earlier generations are now low enough that her developing brain can form the complex neural pathways that make false killer whales the ocean's most intelligent predators. But intelligence alone won't be enough for her generation. The ocean she's entering is more complex than any previous generation has faced. Human activities continue expanding into areas that were once pristine wilderness, creating challenges that require constant adaptation and innovation. Your daughter will need every advantage you can provide, plus the ability to develop solutions that haven't been invented yet. Your role as her teacher begins immediately. Unlike your first calf, who you tried to protect from the harsh realities of modern ocean life, you're determined to prepare this one for the world as it actually exists. She needs to understand not just traditional hunting techniques, but also how to navigate shipping lanes, avoid fishing nets, and interpret the acoustic signatures of human activities that could threaten her survival. The pod's approach to raising your daughter reflects lessons learned from previous tragedies and successes. Adults take turns demonstrating not just how to hunt in clean waters, but how to identify contaminated areas and avoid them entirely. They teach her to recognize the sounds of research vessels versus commercial fishing operations, understanding that some human activities can be beneficial while others remain dangerous. Your mate's experience with loss and recovery makes her a more deliberate parent than she was before. Every feeding session, every swimming lesson, every social interaction is carefully considered for its impact on your daughter's development. She's not overprotective, but she's intensely focused on providing the knowledge and skills that will allow this calf to thrive where others have failed. The communication networks you've helped establish become crucial resources for your daughter's education. Instead of learning only from your immediate pod, she has access to knowledge from false killer whale populations throughout the region. Different groups have developed specialized techniques for dealing with various environmental challenges, and your daughter can learn from all of them rather than being limited to local experience. Your 21st year marks your daughter's first successful hunt, but it's unlike any first hunt in false killer whale history. Instead of simply catching a fish, she demonstrates understanding of contamination levels, habitat selection, and prey health assessment. She doesn't just feed herself, she makes informed decisions about food safety that protect her from the chemical threats that killed your first calf. The hunting techniques she develops combine traditional false killer whale methods with innovations adapted to current environmental conditions. She learns to use human shipping schedules to predict where prey will be concentrated, understanding that fish behavior changes in response to vessel noise and activity patterns. Her acoustic skills allow her to navigate around fishing operations while identifying areas where human activities actually create feeding opportunities. But your daughter's education goes beyond individual survival skills. She's learning to think about false killer whale society as part of a larger ecosystem that includes human activities as permanent features rather than temporary intrusions. Her generation will need to develop cooperative relationships with humans from the beginning, rather than learning to avoid them and then slowly building trust through research partnerships. Your own role in the broader marine mammal community continues to evolve as younger whales take on more responsibilities in environmental monitoring and human cooperation programs. You're no longer the innovative young adult developing new solutions to unprecedented problems. Instead, you've become an elder whose experience guides strategy and policy for multiple species across vast ocean regions. The research partnerships you helped establish have produced environmental improvements that benefit all marine life, but they've also revealed new challenges that require different approaches. Microplastics in the food chain create contamination problems that can't be solved through traditional pollution control methods. Climate change effects accelerate faster than adaptation mechanisms can accommodate. Ocean acidification threatens the basic chemistry that supports marine ecosystems. Your daughter's generation will inherit these challenges along with the cooperative frameworks you've helped create to address them. They'll need to expand human-whale partnerships beyond pollution monitoring to include climate adaptation, habitat restoration, and ecosystem management on scales that dwarf current conservation efforts. The intelligence that makes your species successful hunters will be crucial for planetary stewardship responsibilities that no marine mammal population has ever faced. Your 22nd year brings recognition that your life's work has created more than environmental improvements. It's established a new model for how intelligent species can cooperate to manage shared planetary resources. The success of human-whale collaboration in addressing ocean pollution has inspired similar partnerships between humans and other intelligent species, creating a global network of interspecies cooperation for environmental protection. The acoustic communication protocols you developed are now used by multiple marine mammal species to coordinate conservation efforts across ocean basins. Dolphins report shipping hazards, pilot whales monitor deep-sea mining activities, and various whale populations contribute to climate change research through their understanding of long-term ocean condition patterns. Your innovations have become the foundation for biological monitoring networks that span the entire planet. Your daughter's development continues to exceed all expectations, not just for individual success, but for her potential contributions to interspecies cooperation. Her acoustic skills allow her to communicate effectively with human researchers from an early age, while her hunting abilities demonstrate that environmental protection efforts can produce marine mammals who are healthier and more capable than previous generations. She represents proof that conservation efforts can enhance rather than compromise natural capabilities. The pod's dynamics have shifted to accommodate the new realities of human-whale cooperation. Adults spend significant time teaching young whales about human activities and how to interact safely with research programs. Hunting strategies incorporate information about shipping schedules, fishing operations, and industrial activities that affect prey distribution and habitat quality. Social structures adapt to include roles for individuals who specialize in human communication and environmental monitoring. Your mate has become pregnant with your fourth calf, confident that environmental conditions continue to improve and that your family's experience provides the knowledge needed to raise healthy offspring in the modern ocean. This pregnancy represents not just personal fulfillment, but species-level optimism about the future of false killer whales in human-dominated marine environments. Your 23rd year culminates with your emergence as a recognized leader in global marine mammal conservation efforts. Your personal journey from environmental victim to conservation advocate has inspired similar movements among intelligent species throughout the world's oceans. The model you've helped develop for human-animal cooperation is being adapted for terrestrial conservation programs, creating planetary stewardship networks that include multiple intelligent species. The birth of your fourth calf occurs in waters that are cleaner than any false killer whale has experienced in living memory, representing the success of 2 decades of cooperative environmental protection efforts. Your newest offspring enters an ocean where marine mammals have established voices in their own conservation, where human activities are managed to support rather than threaten marine ecosystems, and where intelligence is recognized as a planetary resource that must be protected and utilized for the benefit of all species. Your family now includes 2 healthy calves who represent different phases of environmental recovery and different approaches to human-whale cooperation. Your daughter combines traditional false killer whale capabilities with innovations adapted to modern ocean conditions. Your newest calf will grow up in an environment where human cooperation is normal rather than exceptional, likely developing capabilities that go beyond anything previous generations could achieve. The legacy you're building extends far beyond your own lifespan or even your own species. The cooperative relationships you've fostered have created precedents for addressing environmental challenges that affect all life on Earth. Your story has become a template for how intelligence and communication can overcome seemingly insurmountable problems when different species work together rather than competing for dominance over shared resources. Your 24th year approaches with the satisfaction of seeing your life's work produce lasting positive changes that will benefit false killer whales for generations to come. The ocean your calves will inherit is not the pristine wilderness that existed before human industrialization, but it's a managed environment where multiple intelligent species cooperate to maintain conditions that support healthy marine ecosystems and continued evolution of the remarkable intelligence that makes your species unique among Earth's predators. The communication networks you've helped establish now connect marine mammal populations across all the world's oceans, creating early warning systems for environmental threats and coordinating responses to challenges that affect entire planetary ecosystems. Your acoustic innovations have become standard protocols used by intelligent species throughout the marine environment, demonstrating how individual expertise can scale up to benefit entire planetary communities of cooperating species working toward shared environmental goals. As your 24th year draws to a close, you find yourself floating in the same deep blue waters where your journey began, but everything has changed. The helpless newborn who struggled to control his buoyancy has become a leader whose influence spans ocean basins. The calf who once relied entirely on his mother's milk now guides entire populations through environmental challenges that would have destroyed previous generations. Your body bears the scars of a lifetime in the ocean, the mark from your first serious injury, smaller nicks from countless hunts, the weathered skin of an adult who has survived storms, pollution, territorial disputes, and the constant pressure of life as an apex predator. But your mind holds something far more valuable than physical resilience. You carry the accumulated wisdom of 2 decades spent adapting to the most rapidly changing ocean environment in planetary history. The pod around you includes faces that have changed over the years. Some of the adults who taught you to hunt are gone, claimed by age, accidents, or the environmental challenges that your generation learned to overcome. But their knowledge lives on in the techniques you use, the strategies you teach, and the cultural traditions that continue to evolve as each new generation adapts to changing conditions. Your own offspring represent the future of false killer whale intelligence and adaptability. Your daughter has already begun participating in the interspecies communication networks you helped establish, her young voice adding fresh perspectives to conservation discussions that will shape the ocean's future. Your youngest calf grows stronger each day in waters cleaner than any false killer whale has known in generations, proof that cooperation between intelligent species can reverse even severe environmental damage. The acoustic networks that connect whale populations across the globe now carry information about ocean conditions, human activities, and conservation opportunities with a sophistication that rivals human communication systems. Your innovations in cross-species dialogue have created the foundation for planetary stewardship efforts that include multiple intelligent species working toward shared goals rather than competing for limited resources. But perhaps the most remarkable transformation is one that's invisible to casual observation. The relationship between false killer whales and humans has evolved from mutual avoidance to active cooperation, from seeing each other as threats to recognizing shared dependence on healthy ocean ecosystems. Your species' intelligence is now acknowledged as a planetary resource that must be protected and utilized for the benefit of all marine life. The research programs that began with simple pollution monitoring have expanded into comprehensive ocean management systems, where whale knowledge guides human policy while human technology provides capabilities that marine mammals could never develop independently. The success of these partnerships has inspired similar cooperation between humans and other intelligent species, creating a global network of interspecies collaboration for environmental protection. Your life story spans the transition from an era of environmental destruction to the beginning of recovery through conscious cooperation between Earth's most intelligent species. The challenges you've faced, pollution, climate change, habitat loss, acoustic interference, represent the greatest threats your species has ever encountered. But the solutions you've helped develop prove that intelligence, communication, and cooperation can overcome problems that seemed insurmountable when tackled by any single species alone. The ocean your descendants will inherit is not the pristine wilderness that existed before human industrialization, but it's something potentially better. A managed environment where multiple intelligent species work together to maintain conditions that support continued evolution and the remarkable cognitive abilities that make life like yours possible. Your legacy ensures that false killer whale intelligence will continue to influence ocean health for generations to come. As you float in the deep blue waters that have been your home, hunting ground, classroom, and battlefield for more than 2 decades, you understand that your individual story is part of something much larger. Every hunt you've completed, every challenge you've overcome, every innovation you've developed has contributed to your species' ongoing adaptation to a world changing faster than ever before. The journey from birth to potential death for a false killer whale in the modern ocean requires more than just hunting skills and social intelligence. It demands the ability to learn constantly, to adapt quickly to changing conditions, and to contribute to the collective knowledge that keeps entire populations alive. Your life demonstrates that survival in today's ocean isn't just about individual excellence. It's about building cooperative relationships that benefit all marine life. The deep blue waters stretch endlessly around you, filled with opportunities and dangers that will test every lesson you've learned and every innovation you've contributed to your species' survival. Your story proves that intelligence and adaptability can triumph over environmental challenges that would overwhelm less capable species. But more importantly, it shows that cooperation between different forms of intelligence can create solutions that no single species could achieve alone. This is life as a false killer whale in the 21st century, complex, challenging, and ultimately hopeful. Your species' remarkable journey from environmental victim to conservation partner demonstrates that intelligence is the key to survival in a rapidly changing world. The ocean may be different than it was when you were born, but it's still home to one of Earth's most extraordinary predators, whose intelligence continues to evolve and adapt to whatever challenges the future may bring. Here you can find the next video. Click on it. Until then, see you soon.